neighborhood, you have neighbors. They live in houses and apartments all around you. But I have some neighbors that live right in my own yard. Maybe you have neighbors like them too. Here they are. I bet you know these birds. They're robins, and they're my friends. I'm going to tell you about them. It's the end of March. The weather is getting warm. Flowers are coming up. There aren't any leaves on the trees yet, but the buds are getting bigger. It's finally spring. And that's the time when I first see my neighbor, Mr. Robin. Looks like he's checking to be sure this is the right place. He hasn't been here since last fall. Looks like he's satisfied. Now a few days later, it's warmer, and the grass is greener, and Mrs. Robin is here too. Now Mrs. Robin starts looking around. You know what she's looking for? She has to find a place to build a nest. I think she's pretty smart. She picked the pine tree in my yard. It's really a hard job to build a nest. Mrs. Robin has to gather a lot of grass and twigs and other things. Mr. Robin gets mud to make the nest strong. In the Robin's family, Mrs. Robin is the chief builder. You know why? The nest's really just for her. She builds it so that it fits her body exactly right. See? A lot of other robins are building nests too, in a lot of different places. But I'm sure my friend, Mrs. Robin, thinks that she's got the best place. And you know what? I like it too. Maybe because it's in our yard. But wait and hear what happens next. See? An egg. Mrs. Robin laid it. And a couple of days later, 2 eggs, 3, and finally 4 eggs. Now do you know what Mrs. Robin has to do? She has to settle down on the nest and keep her eggs warm. That doesn't leave Mr. Robin with much to do, so he looks for a worm or an insect to eat, or just hops around. Maybe he's just enjoying the warm sun. I don't know how Mrs. Robin does it. She can sit still for hours and even days. I couldn't do that. I bet you couldn't either. Well, the days keep passing. It's April now. Sometimes Mrs. Robin goes to find something to eat, but she never stays away from her nest too long. Can you believe it? She sits on her nest for 13 days. Wow, is she patient. It's a sunny day. I haven't looked at the nest for a while. Mrs. Robin is sitting, but she flies off the nest, and what do I see? Baby robins. Gosh, are they small. Their eyes aren't even open yet. Mrs. Robin never leaves them for very long. But where's Mr. Robin? Here he is, close by. Now Mr. and Mrs. Robin have to work together like a team. It isn't easy to feed such hungry babies. They sure love worms and insects. After a few days, their eyes are open and their feathers have started to grow. But they're still awfully small. Late in the afternoon, when it starts getting cooler, Mrs. Robin covers her babies. Her feathers will keep them warm. You think Mr. Robin is singing them a bedtime song? you know, for us people, it takes years to grow up, not birds. Look at them. In just a few days, they're almost covered with feathers. They look more like Mr. and Mrs. Robin now. Feeding them is really a full-time job. Baby birds sure grow fast. They're just 14 days old and here they are, ready to leave the nest. I bet it isn't easy to fly for the first time, but they do it. Not too well, I guess, but better than I could. They'll practice a lot and get better. Even though they're growing up, Mrs. Robin still keeps an eye on them, and you'll see why. They sure have to watch out for cats. I'll bet that's what Mr. Robin is telling the baby robin. Now it's June, and the robins are about a month old. They can get around a lot better. I guess they're getting used to living away from their nest. That means Mr. Robin has time for a bath. But do you know where Mrs. Robin is? She's raising her second family. This time her nest is on a downspout. In summer, there are cherries around here. I think cherries are Robin's favorite food. Now Mr. and Mrs. Robin are busy again with their second family. These babies are growing fast, just like the other ones did. It's finally summer. You know why Mrs. Robin can go to the bird bath with Mr. Robin now? Their second set of babies is out of the nest. Now it's near the end of summer. The baby robins don't look like babies anymore. Summer's passing and it's starting to get cooler again. Fall is here. Sometimes the temperature gets below freezing. I feel sorry for the robins. It's so cold and windy. But the robins know how to take care of themselves. They fly south where it's warm in the winter. Now Mr. and Mrs. Robin and the young robins have flown away. They'll be gone all winter. But one day the buds will begin to open and Mr. and Mrs. Robin will come back again.